Now, it turns out the fields of science, engineering, and medicine face their own Me Too moment. A new landmark report finds sexual harassment is pervasive in those fields, particularly when it comes to academia. Yamiche Alcindor looks at the toll this is taking on women, whether it happens in the lab, a lecture hall, a hospital, or in the field where research is being conducted. It is the focus of this week's science segment, The Leading Edge.
The report from the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine is the most comprehensive study done yet about harassment in these fields. In fact, academic workplaces are second only to the military in the rate of sexual harassment. The report cited studies that found between 20 and 50% of female students in science, engineering, and medicine experienced harassment, often from faculty and staff. More than 50% of faculty said they too experienced harassment. The problem is even worse for women of color and women who are LGBTQ. Dr. Paula Johnson is the co-chair of the panel that wrote this report. She is the president of Wellesley College. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. The committee identified 3 types of sexual harassment: sexual coercion, unwanted sexual attention, and gender harassment. What leads to this pervasive culture of harassment?
Well, you know, it is the culture. And when there are permissive cultures that allow this type of harassment to occur, the most common being gender harassment. So we like to view it as the put-downs rather than the come-ons, statements that make women feel unwelcome, are denigrating to women, or pictures or other things in the environment. That's the kind of environment that actually not only has a negative impact on women, particularly in their careers, but in other ways, but also sets the stage for sexual coercion, which is more the quid pro quo: sleep with me in order to work with me, or you will be fired, that type of relationship. Or with unwanted sexual attention, unwanted kissing, stroking, everything to sexual assault and rape.
LGBTQ women and women of color are more likely than their straight white counterparts to be harassed. Why are these groups targeted more than their white and straight counterparts? Yeah. And also, what happens to the women of all races and sexual orientations to their careers? Yeah. What happens to these women?
So it's important to know that women, racial and ethnic minorities, and sexual minorities do experience all forms of harassment when you put it all together more frequently. And this is something I think one can make assumptions if you put sexism together with racism and other types of discrimination. But this is work that really needs to be better understood, so more research really needs to be done. And in terms of the impact, what happens to women in their careers, we know that women who have experienced sexual harassment are more likely to experience depression, anxiety, PTSD, and then also are more likely to take a step away from their careers, remove themselves from situations, whether it be a committee or a lab or an actual job. So the outcome and the impact, not only for the individual, but also for the entirety of science, engineering, and medicine, is significant. It's a loss of talent.
The report talked about the fact that there needed to be a change in the culture and the climate at universities. What were the most important recommendations that came out of this report in your mind?
And this report, I'm glad that you really are focusing on this, because this report not only focuses on what we need to do to better handle cases, to better handle how we can look to when there are reports of sexual harassment, but how do we prevent it? Because we have to, one, make sure that the perpetrators of sexual harassment are addressed, but we have to really change the environment so that it doesn't keep happening. Leadership from the very top has got to be committed to really making the end of sexual harassment a priority. We also have to really integrate the values of diversity, inclusion, and respect into every single policy. We have to have very clear and communicated policies. We also have to make our leadership at every level more diverse, and that has to do with diversity in terms of gender and also race and ethnicity. We have more and more women coming in to science, engineering, and medicine, but we can't really wait for those women to make their way through the pipeline. We have to make sure that we're actively advancing women.
I want to talk to you about the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
The report was in the works for the last 2 years, well before the Me Too movement. But how do you think the Me Too movement and the conversation about harassment in other fields is going to impact how this report is received by the sciences?
Yeah. Well, it has raised the profile of how we are thinking about sexual harassment. One thing I think we do, so that's a good thing, right? It's unfortunate that it is so pervasive across all areas, but one of the things is it does raise awareness. But I think we have to be very clear that a lot of the Me Too movement is focused again on the most egregious perpetrators. We have to really think about, again, the culture of how we changing the culture so that we truly prevent sexual harassment from occurring. And also through that, how do we also support the targets of sexual harassment? And that's a very important set of recommendations in the report.
I want to ask you one other question, and it's about the fact that there was a petition launched last month urging the national academies to revoke the membership of anyone found guilty of harassment or assault. Is it time to revoke the membership of people found guilty?
So what I'm going to say to that is that the national academies are reviewing their policies and procedures, and they will come to a set of decisions around how they will move forward. They're doing that based on the findings of this report, and we really hope that all institutions that are impacted in academia do the same.
So should they or should they not revoke the membership?
I think that is really something that the academies have to take up, and this is our report and how we are putting forth the recommendations.
Dr. Paula Johnson, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.